you have a recent op-ed in the Washington Post that talks about not just the fact that they might ban abortion, but that they might go further. What are some ways that they could go further than that?
Well, the thing I think that's important to recognize, right, is that we don't all agree on what abortion means. So Amy Coney Barrett during her hearings was very clear. She said there's no way anyone is going after birth control. That was one of the few things she was very clear about, and that's true. But the problem is not everybody agrees on what birth control is, right? So abortion opponents often argue, as I mentioned, that life begins at fertilization, and then they argue that certain common forms of contraception, like emergency contraception, like Plan B and Ella, and IUDs, act to basically block implantation rather than fertilization. Now, there's disagreements about whether that's true as a medical matter, and there's also disagreements about when life begins, obviously. But the point, I think, is that many people who are opposed to abortion view some of those drugs as abortifacients, and to know that you simply need to look at the Hobby Lobby litigation, where pretty powerful pro-life / anti-abortion groups were arguing that those drugs were abortifacients in challenging the contraceptive mandate of the Affordable Care Act. So there'll also have to be a conversation about what we mean when we talk about abortion, and whether we include things that many of us think are really contraceptives, not abortion.
In regards to Amy Coney Barrett, do we have any evidence of where exactly she might come down in that conversation?
We don't, apart from her personal views. We know that in her personal life, she believes that life begins at fertilization, as many conservative Catholics do. We don't have a sense of whether she'll write that opinion into law, or if she would have support from other conservative members of the court. But it's worth mentioning, right, that another outcome that's possibly on the table, if the Supreme Court is conservative enough, is a nationwide ban on abortion, right? So the effect of overturning Roe, as we've been saying, is more or less to let the states do whatever they want, right? They can ban abortion, they cannot ban abortion. People who are opposed to abortion will probably eventually go to the Supreme Court and argue that there's a federal constitutional right to life. And a federal constitutional right to life would have the effect of banning all abortion, so in progressive as well as conservative states. And that's still a little bit of a long shot, but it's much more likely when you have this conservative supermajority and you have a lot of judges who've been handpicked with the goal of overturning Roe and going further in mind.
I mean, look, my knee-jerk reaction to that would be that hypothetically, some sort of constitutional right to life would seem to include areas other than just abortion. It seems like you can't not have a conversation about capital punishment, police brutality, any number of different topics that are often ignored when talking about pro-life people. In any event, it's an important conversation, and I really appreciate you explaining how, even if we have come to accept that this might mean the end of Roe, that is not necessarily the end of the conversation, and things could go in some pretty crazy directions after that. And so, Mary Ziegler.
And I think the end of the end of Roe too isn't even the end when it comes to abortion, because if this is an issue that interests you, there's going to be fights in all 50 states. There'll probably be a fight in Congress. No one will give up on the Supreme Court. I mean, Joe Biden today has announced a kind of period to study possible court reform. So if we've learned anything from the past 50 years with Roe, it's that the Supreme Court can't settle this or make it go away. So even if there's a decision overturning Roe, the conflict will continue, just in different, probably unpredictable ways.
Yeah, and perhaps in the future, we can speak again as those likely court cases start working their way up to its Supreme Court that might at that point include Amy Coney Barrett. Mary Ziegler, we really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.